What's cracking, Phil?
Nothing much. Been on leave this week. I saw two very different films. Tuesday I saw The Holdovers, and yesterday I saw Zone of Interest, so very different tonal films. The Holdovers, Alexander Payne, who done Sideways.
Well, you saw that first?
Yeah. I should have done it the other way around, I think.
Well, it wasn't in the same day, was it?
No.
So who cares?
Yeah, I wish I would have seen Zone of Interest first and then got the comedy.
So are you saying that because even though it's a day later, it kind of wiped out your mind a bit?
I think I am trying to say that. I think the events of the Zone of Interest, and we know what happens in it. It's about Auschwitz. It's just got me thinking like how crazy it was, and I just it has got wiped out.
That is an interesting thing though, because I actually buy into that, where you liked Holdovers, but you nearly, after you've seen a film, you actually sort of need time to digest it and let it just settle, especially when you've really it's got you thinking. And it's probably not a good idea to actually watch a really good new film until maybe like a few days later, if that makes sense. Kind of like a don't go swimming an hour after eating kind of rule, because obviously it's not like you're not going to just not watch anything for a few days because we're fucking obsessed with films. We always watch films, but maybe you should go back to old comforts that you know you're going to like, because there is that weird thing where I actually see why double bills are always for old movies that you've probably seen before or are in the same tone at least, because when you do naturally when you do double bills, they're almost never the same tone as each other, are they? They just aren't. But there is a weird thing where you don't have your starter last and your dessert first. There's an order of how you want to do it, and it's the same thing with your mental diet of digesting films. You can actually ruin what would have been the lasting experience of enjoying The Holdover by the fact that you wiped it out with watching this creepy, weird Jonathan Glazer Holocaust movie just a day later.
Yeah, it's The Zone of Interest. Obviously, no spoilers. Relatively new film. Don't worry about that, viewers. It's purposely very claustrophobic and very trippy in its tone. Again, no spoilers, but the first 3 minutes is just a black screen, just with a music going.
Oh, so he's feeling himself on this one.
He's trying to trip you out, like get you into the zone. So
it's kind of like, do you remember 2001: A Space Odyssey when it first came out? It had an intermission built into it. Still see it in certain versions. I think it says intermission for a second and it goes black, and it's about 2-3 minutes long and just playing one of the really intense scores in it, and it's creepy. When you I recommend not fast forwarding it when you're watching 2001 if you have that version, because it just puts you into a weird head state, which may be what he was going for there.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, Declan, because my dad had parked in the cinema car park, and we got in and sat down, and then he pulled the little card you get when you buy the ticket.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, was I meant to put this on the windscreen? And I was like, yeah, you have to put it on to show
What, the park? I thought you meant the cinema.
Yeah, you have to put it on to show you've paid, otherwise the traffic wardens will come along and think you haven't paid and just
shit.
And he was like, shit, I need to go. And then he come back in and goes, what have I missed? And I just turned around and was like, it's legit been a black screen for the past 4 minutes. And he just looked at me like... But I do recommend it. It's a difficult film. The critics have been saying one of the best films of the generation. But it's always the same, Declan. I don't know what your thoughts are with the award ceremony. Every single year, it's always the same sort of films, like a film about sexuality. 12 Years a Slave is another example. Films about big historical events, or...
What do you mean a film about sexuality?
I'm thinking of...
Do you mean about a film about, being gay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know how to phrase it.
Okay,
so
right.
Before it was Moonlight. Moonlight was a big one. This awards run would be All of Us Strangers, starring Paul Mescal, where he's in a gay relationship.
That actually looks really good.
It does look really good.
Is that getting Oscar nods?
I think it's getting Oscar nods, yeah. But the same, every year it's always the same kind of films that get nominated for the awards. If we look at The Holdovers, I guess we can class it as coming of age as well, because of what happens in it, and with The Holdovers, the guy who stars alongside Paul Giamatti, I was watching an interview earlier with Alexander Payne, and he's basically said, we looked at about 800 auditions or show reels for this part.
This is for the young
lead. So Alexander Payne turned to his casting director and said, why don't we do something different? Why don't we go to the school we're shooting at? Because it's shot in a school. It looks like a very, very fancy school, by the way. Why don't we go to the drama department and see what they can do? And they went along and they just plucked him from there. He's had no previous acting experience and he was fucking excellent.
Really?
Yeah, it was just crazy, like, and it really does show the thing of, like, I think it's you that always talks about there might be like a footballer in Africa that is like one of the best
Formula One drivers might be from Congo and you'd never find out.
You'd never know because you wouldn't be looking there. It's like, it really does show the amount of untapped talent, because the thing with films now, Declan, is attaching a big name to it makes money. So therefore they're always going to go for the big names. They're not going to have like this $1 million script and be like, let's just cast someone unknown because the studios won't have it. And it's just really crazy. But it's a really great Alexander Payne effort. For me, Sideways is his best work. This does come close. Again, I don't think I've ever seen a bad thing that Paul Giamatti's in.
No,
literally.
Like a superpower that doesn't get talked about enough with actors. It's kind of like in sport. People will talk about speed, athleticism, technique. No one ever talks about availability or if they're injured all the time as an asset, and they should. And it's with actors, I think a talent that people never talk about and why an actor's career turns out either good or bad is knowing how to pick projects. Another example is Kurt Russell. When's Kurt Russell ever made a bad film? Like, he always picks really interesting roles. He always ends up in movies that end up having a bunch of sequels. Partly it's to do with him because he's a G. John Travolta, complete opposite. What a talented, charismatic guy. But possibly the worst project picker of all time in his career. He's been so shit for so long, but once a decade, he'll accidentally pick a great role, revive it for 2 seconds, and then ruin it again the next second. So do you reckon it's one of those films, it's kind of like a new Wes Anderson film. You know, you say to a person, you recommend it on the basis of, if you like Wes Anderson films, you'll like this one. Or in the case of The French Dispatch, you'll say, even if you like Wes Anderson films, you probably won't like this one. But does that fall into this category? Because I feel like his films, they're always different, but they always have his same like tone and flavour to them.
Yeah, it definitely falls into if Wes Anderson's got a category, I think we got to start giving Alexander Payne a category. Either like teenage angst or like midlife crises. It 100% falls in there, because this was set in a school. The jokes that Paul Giamatti was making as the teacher was very highbrow, so I don't know if that would turn some people off going. It's very intricate, some of it. But
what do you mean, like the subjects matter, or the way he's telling?
Like the way he was what do you call it, having a go at the students and stuff. He was calling them words such as troglodytes and and like it was very, very highbrow. Like it was good for me. Like I liked it, but
I love that word ever since watching Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah.
It's a great word. Like if you're calling someone a fucking dope or a Neanderthal.
Going back to what you said about John Travolta, before you said it, that was actually the name that popped into my head about bad casting. But I thought of a bit of a unique...
Not bad casting, he's awful at picking projects. Sorry. I thought of quite a unique one in my head while you were saying John Travolta. Nicolas Cage. As in great?
As in not great all the time. He's picked some bad ones, but he kind of reinvented himself lately. What was that sci-fi one where a comet lands and he's fighting aliens? That was very good.
A Colour Out of Space.
That was fantastic. Pig. Have you seen Pig? Where
beautiful film. Like
literally, I was like, Nicolas Cage in this. I was like, what a fucking genius role to pick by Cage.
Let's break this down. Has he reinvented himself? Because I know he went through that era in the early noughties where he was pretty much vast majority making shit like Ghost Rider or whatever it was called.
Terrible.
Tokyo Dangerous or whatever the fuck, Shanghai Shoot You
Awful.
or whatever the fuck that shit was called. If you go back as far as early 90s, forget like his breaking into the industry years, because that you don't get your choices then. Early 90s onwards, in close proximity in terms of years, he was in Face Off, wacky, completely stupid, bombastic, over-the-top action film. Fucking great. We definitely should do that soon, actually. With John Travolta, actually, incidentally. And then maybe, what was it, a year apart he did Leaving Las Vegas? He's always been this guy who, certain people, if you're the chick from Scary Movie, who I always really liked, started off as a really serious actress, had a long run in theatre as a really serious actress. Her first big movie break was Scary Movie, and then she wouldn't get anything but comedies and dumb movie for the rest of her career. She could never shake it off. If a script came through or an agent called, she knew what the film was going to be like, what it was going to be. When Nicolas Cage gets a call, it could be, you're going to star in a film where you accidentally get teleported to Mars and fuck the alien king's wife, and then you have to have a big shootout, and it's called Nicolas Cage Saves the Day, and you star as yourself in it. And he'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. That sounds good. And he'll pull it off. Or he could get a call from Francis Ford Coppola's coming out of retirement, making a new film. He's finally making Metropolis, and he wants you to be the lead. Or someone's saying, hey, we're making a biopic of Mussolini, and we want you to be one of his right-hand men who do some of his worst atrocities. And he'll nail that as well. He'll get a call and be like, hey, we have a budget of 20 grand, so we can't pay you, but here's the script, and if he likes it, he'll do it. He kind of is an enigma, and he's broken that bullshit of getting typecast and Hollywood putting you into a box of what you're meant to be. I mean, to be fair, he's kind of always Nicolas Cage, so I guess he's in his own box that he's created himself, but it's brilliant that he really does do what he wants. And if you know there's a new Nicolas Cage movie coming out, you have no idea what that means, the way you do with a lot of actors.
Well, he's doing comedy now as well, because he was fucking Dracula in that Reinfeld, and he's even playing up to it now with that film where he plays himself with Pedro Pascal. It's just self-awareness.
Didn't see that, actually. Was it good?
That was actually pretty good. It done exactly what it needed to do. It was very self-aware and purposely taking the piss, and that's why it was so great. When I got to the end of The Zone of Interest and the credits roll, I just sat there in silence, like processing what I had just seen. And I just thought to myself, Declan, this guy, Jonathan Glazer, directed this film and Sexy Beast. What a great, diverse filmmaker. And I was thinking of other examples of them, like we've discussed it before on the show. Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, Spielberg.
That was the same year, though.
That was the same year. Like, he's done Under the Skin, Sexy Beast, and Zone of Interest. Like,
now, I haven't seen Zone of Interest, obviously. I haven't seen Birth either. But in terms of stepping stone film, I mean, Under the Skin sounds pretty similar in tone, just from the way you're describing it.
Yeah, again, Under the Skin is very trippy. We know Scarlett Johansson is an alien prostitute. She has a client who, you know, that guy who has like severe elephantitis, like John Merrick. It's similar tone, but I
mean, in terms of tone and storytelling, and style,
it's similar. It's claustrophobic. It's trippy.
Saying that though, it's kind of it's a shame how directors like that. Like, I feel like a lot of the time, once they go down a different road, which is interesting, they never seem to be able to go back.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one who suddenly shifted gears and really changed, and it felt kind of deliberate. Like, sometimes I wonder how even organic or natural it was. But Paul Thomas Anderson, his first couple of films, he had Hard Eight, an amazing debut, perfect indie debut for a writer-director. Followed it up with Boogie Nights, incredible. That's when he kind of made his name, and people were looking around being like, oh shit, like, this guy's seriously legit. So he gets his kind of giant epic of this period of his career, which was Magnolia, which was huge and over the top and ridiculous length and 3.5 hours, and the biggest ensemble cast interweaving lives movie of all that genre. Like, it's the Gone with the Wind of that mini genre. Huge. Then he made the in-between film that splits them, which was with Adam Sandler. I can't remember the name of it, but anyone who's a Paul Thomas Anderson fan knows who I'm talking about. And that tonally was totally different to the 3 previous films. Storytelling style, camera work style to a certain extent, very different. And then from there, he made There Will Be Blood. And starkly, the second half of his career began, where I nearly feel like first half of his career, he was thinking, I love Martin Scorsese movies. I want to make movies like Martin Scorsese. Didn't make a gangster film, but storytelling-wise, not even Martin Scorsese, but specifically the Goodfellas, the Casino, the Wolf of Wall Street. That style of storytelling. Lots of voiceover, lots of fluid camera movement, tons of scenes and different setups and characters. And then the second half of his career, he was like, I want to try being Kubrick or Kubrick-esque, or, you know, and he doesn't go from genre to genre like Kubrick, but it's everything's very serious, and why did that happen, and long lingering shots, and you know, Magnolia and Boogie Nights felt like they had to be that long. They had to have a long running time, or else you were cutting story content, which you can do. But, you know, his films since, like The Master and stuff, they feel long, not for the sake of it, but they've been made to be long. In terms of story that they're showing on screen, it's not actually, don't need to be that long. But anyway, my point is, I kind of figured, okay, this is just the kind of films he makes now. And his last film, Mystic Pizza, was kind of a nice, not complete return to his old films, but it was like a marrying of the two styles. It felt like his first half of his career and the second half of his career fucked and had a baby, and this came out and that was the film. You know, because sometimes you nearly grieve where you're like, what if he was your favourite director in the world for the first half of his career and you hated the films after? You'd be sad being like, I'll never get another Paul Thomas Anderson film that I love.
Yeah, I totally agree. I really enjoyed Licorice Pizza. Right?
Oh, what do I call it? Mystic
Pizza.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say anything. But Paul Thomas Anderson, I do kind of like those films where I can't really explain it. Nothing really happens. Like literally, it's just showing the characters and their development.
But you're a big fan of Patterson.
Oh, I love Patterson. Guy fancies girl, tries to get the girl in the 70s. But yeah, it's a great film. I think in modern day director terms, I'm kind of looking at Ari Aster, what he's going to do next, because he does come with some like left field ones. He done Midsummer, didn't he? Horror kind of thing. Then he followed it up with Beau is Afraid.
Still haven't seen that actually. I've got a lot of films to be able to see.
I'll let you make your own opinion on that.
Hard watch, was it?
It was very long. I personally didn't like it. It might be that you do, but I didn't think it was that good.
Shit, that's a shame, because you think the two writer-directors that were coming out, the new ones on the scene that were coming out of America recently, Ari Aster and David Eggers,
Robert Eggers.
And Robert Eggers, their first couple of films, they would look fucking amazing. A lot of people didn't like Midsummer. I thought it was fucking brilliant. I thought it was one of the best films I'd seen in a long, long time. And it's so fun when you get a film like that where it's the director's second film and he's the writer-director, and you're just like, you just know, like, every 2 years I've got a fucking class movie coming out of this geezer for at least the next 10, 20 years. And Robert Eggers was the same. Probably had him edging Aster in terms of who I was most excited about. And both their last films have, you know, struggled. I haven't seen Beau is Afraid. I might still really like it. But I actually tapped out of the Viking film.
The Northman.
I can't remember anything today. I actually tapped out of it because I thought it was so bad. I don't know if you remember. Remember we had predictions of how it was going to do. And to be honest, like, not to toot my own horn, but I wasn't spot on because I thought it was going to be still very good. It was a lot worse. Like, on a technical and storytelling level, it was just like shambolic at points. But I kind of thought this will probably be a really flawed movie that will be a good learning curve for him, because The Lighthouse was a brilliantly made big film. You know, it was, you know, you got 2-star actors in it, but you have 2 stars and 2 actors, period. There's no one else. One location, the entire film. That's an easy shoot. You go straight from that to a mid-range, big budget Viking epic spanning decades and different scenes and battles and hundreds of extras at times. Huge difference. And he ultimately he failed. I love the fact that he's now going back to what I'm assuming is going to be a much tighter, smaller production with the Nosferatu remake, which the moment I heard that, even though his last film went so badly, I was like, bang, that is going to be fucking sick. The cast is going to be brilliant. He's going to be back in more of a comfort zone, and I just think that's going to be great.
It's kind of like, films are kind of like football.
Okay, we always do that.
Oh no, well, I always go back to football. It's like a director could have 2 good films in a row, or like a player could be having like a run of form where he scored 14 goals in 12 games. You're always thinking, because of recency bias, you're like, they're on form, these people are good. And then you see the next film and you're like scratching your head, where did this come from? Like, each film is like a different entity, and sometimes I compare the whole catalogue and be like, well, his last 2 efforts were great, so therefore in my head it's automatically going to be fantastic. But it doesn't work like that, does it?
No, and I think it's a sign of, like, it's no surprise. I think you tend to get more consistency with writer-directors. They don't really fall off in such a way, because like, movie making's always going to be collaborative, but when you are doing more of the jobs, it's less chance that you're teamed up with just a really good writing partner, or maybe Roger Deakins doing all your photography for years, and then he can't do it for one film, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, this actually, yeah, you're not that good at photography. It was him the whole time. But yeah, it's a weird thing. I'll give you another sports analogy. Boxing. Whereas, you know, if you're a footballer, you can be shit for a whole season potentially, and they'll just be like, oh, you had a bad season, you'll be all right next season, or he's in good form again. And that's like, what, 60 games potentially over the year? A fighter, if you lose 1, that can be career ending. If you lose 2 or 3, like, that potentially could be career over. Or maybe not over, but your time at the top, like, you have to completely recalibrate. Maybe you're just going to be a journeyman now and get those kind of fights and make money. Being a director, like, you must be shit in it, because if one film turns out bad, that could be lights out. That could be the end of it. Even if you still can make films, it might just put you off ever having that kind of money. Like John Carpenter, he had The Thing flopped, which might be his best film, but it flopped at the box office and cost a lot of money compared to his other films. Big Trouble in Little China, maybe his best film, also flopped and also cost a lot of money. And he just wanted, I think after The Thing, he was just like, you know what, fuck it. He got his special deal at that, I can't remember what studio, but he got his special deal where it was, we'll give you $2 million, we won't have any creative control, you do what you want. And that was his deal forever. He produced some of his best films during that period. But, at times the budget shows, and it's a shame because John Carpenter should have been, fuck it if he doesn't make money, he should be getting handed 50 million per film no matter what. Like, someone that talented should just get it, but obviously it doesn't work that way.
That's probably a better way of looking at it, because I genuinely feel a bit pissed off at Ari Aster.
Really?
I sat there for 3 hours and watched that film, and to me personally, obviously no spoilers again, I just thought he had got into his head so much, like I am this big guy now. The whole thing just seemed like a vain, extravagant kind of like vanity project to boost his ego. Like, and I was just sitting there like, what the fuck is going on in this film?
Was it a bit like Michael Cimino? Did his first film, which was, I can't remember the name, but it was Clint Eastwood and someone else, and it was like a bank robbing film. Really good, amazing debut. Followed it up with The Deer Hunter, my personal favourite Vietnam War film, and there's been some fucking good ones. Incredible film, one of the best films ever. After that, he could do whatever he wanted, literally whatever he wanted. And it was the peak of the 70s when it was, the director had by far the most control in Hollywood. And he literally bankrupted United Artists and ended the entire studio that had been around since like fucking the dawn of Hollywood, because he made the most ego-obsessed film of all time. Or the production was, at least. The film is actually fucking really good. I actually really like it. No one ever really watches it or talks about it because it gets overshadowed by the fact that he went so crazy. But he was so self-indulgent and so nuts on the production. There were stories of him ordering in 1 million daffodils to be sent from a certain state by train overnight, and then he just wouldn't even bother using it. Recreating entire town sets, having them all knocked down so that one house could be moved over a meter. Ridiculous ego stuff like that. But it is that weird thing where, to put it another way, some people say that about Magnolia, going back to Paul Thomas Anderson, and he actually said, I know it's self-indulgent, I know it's too long, I know it's a lot of things that are too much, but I figured I'd got so much hype from Boogie Nights, whatever I tried to do might flop next. So if I'm gonna ever make a film like this, that's this over the top, this over long, this whatever, really going wacky with the ideas, trying whatever I want, I have to do it now. I might never get another opportunity. So maybe he just thought, because even the artiest, most interesting directors, they're still working within a system. John Carpenter, like I said, he had that complete creative control deal, but there's stories of the lead actress that he got from the theatre. She wanted to do all these things for the role, like have a couple of teeth removed and look blacked out and look really beaten up because she's surviving in this apocalypse. And he knew he had creative control, but he still turned around and said, it's not that kind of movie, like you need to look nice. It just is what it is. Like, we're trying to sell a movie here in the 80s. And maybe he just thought, even my fans, a lot of them will hate this film, but I've always wanted to make it, and maybe it's my only opportunity to make it. Fuck it, I'm going to do it now while I'm hot.
That would make sense.
I haven't even
We will never know, but something else I wanted to discuss. I saw a trailer for Bob Marley.
Yeah, I'm not that blown away. I don't know why.
And I saw a trailer for the new Amy Winehouse one.
I didn't even know there was one coming out.
Yeah, they're making a Life of Amy Winehouse.
What's the chick look like?
She does look like her.
Yeah?
She does look like her. She
sounds
feel
like
her. She does.
Yeah?
She does.
Sweet.
She sounds like her as well. But I guess what the point was there, Clint, I sat there thinking, are we really starved of such ideas now? New films, new innovative ideas that were really now going on into big musical biopics. We've had Elvis, we've had Bob Marley, we've had Amy Winehouse, we've had the Jimi Hendrix one, which was terrible, starring Andre 3000.
I didn't even know that came out. There really is a lot right now, isn't it?
My point is, there's loads. Do you see that as the studio are looking at it as, well, these are huge stars, Bob Marley, Amy Winehouse, this is a cash cow? Or do you see it as, there are such little ideas being bandied about now, that is the easy route?
No, that's the first one, because like, there's never not ideas bandying about. They're just not interesting ideas getting picked or given money or greenlit. There's always been musical biopic, but there's also always been clusters of them, and it's like any genre. There was no zombie movies for a long time. 28 Days Later becomes a hit. All of a sudden studios are like, oh, can't stop giving money to fucking any shitty zombie movie script that comes by him. Like, oh, zombies that work as an ice cream man, but he's a zombie as well. Like, fucking give that $50 million. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was the Elton John one.
It probably was
one. Once in like a decade, there hasn't been any for a while because a couple bombed, so the studio stopped giving it money. One gets greenlit, maybe 10 years later on the fly, if it's a hit, you'll suddenly see a couple for the next couple of years because they'll start banging them out because, you know, it's a business and they're just like, oh, this worked. People like that right now. Let's crank them out. Never occurs to them that it was just a good film for some reason. But
It also could have been Bohemian Rhapsody.
yeah, all that.
Yeah, like they all come out at similar time. He sent me a trailer recently
Right, I don't remember.
on the Instagram of the new film called Monster.
I remember sending it to you, but I have no... What was it about?
Basically, by the same director as, remember when we went to see The Broker and Shoplifters?
Yeah. Right, it's that new Japanese film.
Yeah, and it follows basically a son or a daughter, I can't remember, gets home from school and is acting weirdly. So the parents connect the dots and go in and they confront the teacher and say, did you hit my child? It's kind of like a weird thriller, you know, and the trailers always make it look good. It's flashing up with all these 5 stars, a powerhouse at the top of his game, etc., etc. But it just looks really great.
Do you know what's funny though? That used to really mean something, but now you need to look closely at the publication because back in the day, you know, when it was like, I don't know, in the 80s, yeah, it'd be like, it'd be like
OK Magazine.
No, New York Times. But nowadays you look and it's like Johnny's Film Blog.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And you're like, who the fuck's that?
But it's crazy because I saw another trailer in the cinema for one called Perfect Days, and it follows a Japanese toilet cleaner just about his life, and everyone's saying to him, you're doing nothing with your life, you're cleaning toilets, and his argument is, I am, but I'm happy. You know, like, and that looks really good. I mean,
so it's the Japanese film version of John Lennon singing "Watching the Wheels Go Round."
Yeah, and my dad was like, it's funny how two people can perceive different stuff, because my dad was like, that's awful, and I was like, that looked great, you know what I mean? And even Zone of Interest, he didn't like it, and I was like, I like this. It's just so weird how, like, you see the same thing and you get a different outcome. Like,
but there is also, like, there's a level. If you watch Goodfellas and someone's like, oh, that was terrible, you'd look at him like, what? A man, woman, or child, I don't care if you're a 13-year-old girl, you should still enjoy Goodfellas. Like, it's just a perfect people-pleasing film. Like, there's films I love that even if you were like, I hate that film, I can't be shocked. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't be like, what? Like, what do you mean you didn't enjoy 2001: A Space Odyssey? Didn't you think it was good when no one spoke for the first half an hour and there was monkeys jumping about? And didn't you enjoy the last 30 minutes that don't make sense and it's like just lights flying at the screen and a giant baby head? And I don't like the thing of like, oh, you didn't get it. You don't have to get it. Sometimes you do get it and you just don't like it.
I mean, to be honest, Declan, another example would be if you showed A Clockwork Orange to a new generation now, they would probably be like, what the fuck is going on in this film? They're all talking in their language, they're hitting people with giant dildos, they're beating up tramps, like they're drinking milk.
I mean, it probably was like, what the fuck when it came out as well. But I know what you mean.
I know we haven't seen all of the Oscar-nominated films. What would you like to win the Best Picture?
I mean, I'll come up with one just to go with you, but I've never watched the Oscars.
You don't
mean this in like an edgy, hey man way, but the Oscars is just a waste of time. I'll happily bitch about it for the next half hour, but I mean, I don't know, what's come out this year? What's nominated?
Well, the big ones are Zone of Interest is... before I continue, Oppenheimer's going to sweep it.
Go on, Oppenheimer. That's a fair film.
Sweep it. But are you saying to me that you don't like the Oscars just for the fact that there'll be a lot of critics like stroking their chins going, give it to this or that, and it doesn't represent the average normal film goer's opinion?
No, I would respect it. I'm fine with that kind of thing, because just because it's maybe they're excluding a certain sort of, I don't know, well, the majority maybe of film fans or how people view films, but no, I'm fine with that. As long as like there's an actual integrity behind it. Like, I don't agree with a lot of Mark Commode's reviews, but I used to love him just because I liked hearing him get all passionate and worked up. But I can't watch him anymore when he starts injecting his own politics into it and talking more about that in the fucking movie or what the director said and stuff. The Oscars, I mean, it's just like, I don't know at what point it started, but it was a joke for years. You were saying at the start about, you know, certain kind of films, like these days, it's a homosexual film, say. Yeah. And they'll be like, this is the big gay film for this year. And, you know, this is going to win. But it's not always been like that. Obviously, you know, you weren't getting that in the 80s because people would be pissed. People wouldn't accept that. Especially like the fucking old established people that actually vote on the Oscars. But there's always been Oscar bait. Like the Queen comes out, or the film that's supposed to make you cry, or the film where like some reporter exposes something. They come out, you know what it's. They come out at a certain time, you know it's like, you know, I don't know, fucking... Robert De Niro's decided he wants his Oscar, or whoever hasn't won an Oscar. Or Samuel Jackson's like, do you know what, this is going to be my Oscar film. And it's nearly like an unacknowledged open secret that he's doing this to win the Oscar. No one's going to see it. No normal fans are going to like it, but it's going to win the Oscar and be like the best film that year. It's a load of shit. And to top it all off, I didn't even know this until a year ago, but apparently half the time, a lot of them don't even watch the films they vote for. So why would you care? It's a load of shit.
I'll tell you the best thing at taking the piss out of it was The Simpsons. That episode where the film critic comes along and Barney Gumble makes this black and white film, and he puts the rose into like the Duff beer because he's an alcoholic.
And he starts to melt.
Yeah, and he goes, "Don't cry for me, I'm already dead." And then everyone...
It's Finny.
Yeah, and then there's another film of Homer getting hit in the groin with a football, and everyone stands up and claps. Yeah. Like, that summed it up perfectly. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, for me, Killers of the Flower Moon I like.
Oh, it's beautiful.
If I'm sitting here as a nostalgia merchant, as a film fan, like, my worry is, Declan, that every single film Scorsese does now, it could potentially be the last that he does due to his age.
Which is why I have he can make a 7-hour film for all I care.
And it's like, if that is the case, give it to him. Do you know what I mean? But I think for what it was, Christopher Nolan, I would like to see Declan, Cillian Murphy win an Oscar. Yeah. I think he's I think he's excellent.
I'd like him to win it if he gives a shit, because I think he's unbelievable. If he cares about it, which he probably does, like you would, fair enough.
But they're trying to make big deals, because after he won a BAFTA, Cillian Murphy, and they said, how do you feel about accepting a British Film Award? And he said, well, I'd accept the award. I'm definitely still Irish. What do you want me to do? Sing you a rebel song?
As opposed to what? What do they even mean?
It's just them trying to be idiots.
But who? Who's a journalist?
The journalist.
But as in implying, well, you're Irish, so you shouldn't accept it?
Yeah. Basically, there was like things of him before of the royal family, and you know the history between Britain and Ireland, of course. And he shakes their hand, and everyone was like, "Oh, shaking Prince William's hand," and he's like, "Well, what do you want me to do? Like, totally blank him." Like, they put these people into awkward situations, is what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, and also like you like, just because you hate, like, you can hate the royal family as an establishment. I think it's stupid and you should get rid of it. But I don't know them. Like, they're just fucking. Like, I feel bad for him being born into that nonsense. Like, that looks awful. And it is a weird thing. Like, what, you're not going to shake his hand when he puts it out to you?
Yeah, it's just basically Declan is a lose-lose situation. Shake his hand and they'll say, "Oh, I thought you was against the British monarchy and everything they stand for." Don't shake his hand. It's in the Sun newspaper. Cillian snubs William, like, in big writing. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's a lose-lose.
To be fair, yeah, like, even if you didn't want to shake his hand and you didn't like him, you'd probably think it's gonna be a way smaller news story if I just shake his hand.
Yeah.
Why were they meeting?
Because they were doing a press junket for Oppenheimer, and he was there. Yeah, I mean, I do keep an eye on the Oscars just to see what has won, because I do find it interesting. Like, they will vote for, sometimes I think deliberately to make controversy, they just vote for a left field one, and everyone's like, why the fuck did that win?
Like what?
I can't think of an example. I knew you'd put me on the spot.
I was genuinely interested.
There's been loads of ones.
Actually, fuck it, let's both watch it this year and we'll do a show about it afterwards.
Sometimes, Declan, I actually like it because of the smaller stuff, like, you know, best cinematography, best effects. Like, for me, that's quite good. I like to see that stuff noticed.
Yeah, no, that is true. I like that.
But like, it's always the big ones that take the headlines, you know.